Xukai and Tansongyun, the letter that arrived too late, a secret that nearly broke their trust. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional celebrity stories, unexpected twists, and drama-inspired entertainment. There are some secrets that destroy relationships. And then there are secrets that were never meant to cause pain at all. For Xukai and Tansongyun, one mysterious letter, one unanswered phone call, and one carefully hidden package were enough to make them question everything they thought they knew about each other. But what Tansongyun discovered in the end was something she never expected. The truth had been hidden from her, not because Xukai had stopped loving her, but because he was preparing a surprise he believed would make her happier than anything money could buy. Unfortunately, by the time the truth finally came out, the letter had already arrived too late. And the damage caused by silence had already begun. Xukai and Tansongyun had always believed that fame should never become stronger than their relationship. Their lives were anything but ordinary. Their schedules were packed with filming, meetings, promotional events, interviews, and endless travel. Some weeks, they barely had enough time to sit down and enjoy breakfast together. Other weeks, they were filming in completely different cities, separated by hundreds of miles. Yet somehow, they always found a way to stay connected. Sometimes it was nothing more than a short phone call before bed. Sometimes it was a simple message in the morning. Good luck today. Did you eat? I miss you. And sometimes, when one of them returned to a hotel after an exhausting day, there would be a small surprise waiting, a bouquet of flowers, a favorite snack, or a handwritten note. They never needed extravagant gifts. For them, the smallest gestures often meant the most. Their friends admired how naturally they supported one another despite the pressure of their careers. Fans, meanwhile, often viewed them as a couple who understood that love wasn't about spending every minute together. It was about making the moments they did have together count. Everything seemed stable. Everything seemed happy. Until one rainy afternoon. That was the day an ordinary envelope quietly entered their home. And neither of them realized just how much trouble it would cause. Tansongyun had just returned from a long day of filming. The rain outside had been falling for hours, leaving the streets wet and grey. Exhausted, she dropped her bag near the door and began sorting through the day's mail. Most of the envelopes were ordinary. Bills, invitations, work-related documents. Then she noticed one envelope that immediately caught her attention. It had Tsukai's name written clearly across the front. There was no obvious return address. She paused. For a moment, curiosity took over. But she didn't open it. Instead, she placed it carefully on the table, intending to give it to Xukai when he came home. Several hours later, the front door finally opened. Xukai walked inside. He looked exhausted. But the moment his eyes landed on the envelope, something changed. His expression froze. Only for a second. But Tansongyun noticed. He walked over, picked up the envelope, and quietly slipped it into his bag. She looked at him and smiled. Who sent that? Xukai hesitated. Just something work-related. It sounded harmless. Simple. Normal. But something about the way he said it made Tansongyun uncomfortable. She could have asked again. Instead, she chose to trust him. At least for the moment. She had no idea that this decision would soon become much harder than she expected. The days passed. But the envelope was never mentioned again. And slowly, Tansongyun began noticing other changes. Xukai seemed distracted. Sometimes, he would sit quietly by the window for several minutes, lost in thought. Other times, his phone would ring, and he would immediately leave the room before answering. Whenever Tansongyun asked if something was wrong, he gave her the same answer. Nothing. I'm just dealing with work. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But doubt doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it enters quietly. A strange expression here. A secretive phone call there. A question left unanswered. And before you realize it, you're wondering whether the person standing beside you is still telling you everything. Then came the charity gala. The evening began normally. Xukai and Tansongyun attended the event together, smiled for photographs, greeted guests, and spoke with several familiar faces. Nothing appeared unusual. Until an elderly woman approached Xukai. She greeted him warmly. Then, almost casually, she said something that made Tansongyun's attention immediately shift toward them. I hope you've made the right decision. Xukai smiled politely. Thank you. Then he quickly changed the subject. The entire conversation lasted only a few seconds. But those few seconds stayed in Tansongyun's mind for the rest of the night. What decision? Why hadn't Xukai ever mentioned it? And more importantly, why did he look so nervous? A few days later, Xukai suddenly told her he had to leave town for 2 days. An important meeting. That was all he said. He packed quickly and left early the following morning. Before leaving, he promised, I'll call you tonight. And he did. The first evening, the phone rang exactly when she expected. They spoke briefly. Everything seemed fine. But the following night was different. The call never came. Tansongyun waited. She checked her phone. Then checked it again. She tried convincing herself that the meeting had simply run late. An hour passed. Then another. Still nothing. Eventually, she went to bed without hearing from him. The next morning, a message finally appeared. I'm sorry. Things became complicated. I'll explain everything when I get back. Tansongyun stared at those words. Especially one word. Complicated. It was a simple word. But suddenly, it felt impossibly heavy. When Xukai finally returned home, he looked emotionally drained. Tansongyun didn't accuse him of anything. She simply asked where he had been. He gave her the same explanation. An important work matter. Nothing more. She nodded. But something inside her had changed. For the first time since they had become close, their conversations felt forced. The laughter wasn't as natural. The silence lasted longer. Questions remained unasked. Answers remained hidden. And neither of them knew how to begin the conversation they both desperately needed. Then, just when Tansongyun thought things couldn't become more confusing, Another surprise arrived. This time, it wasn't an envelope. It was a small package. The delivery driver accidentally handed it directly to her. The label clearly carried Tsukai's name. She stared at it for a moment. She could have opened it. She didn't. Instead, she placed it on the table. When Xukai came home and saw the package, his reaction was immediate. He looked nervous, almost frightened. He thanked her for not opening it and quickly carried the package into another room. That was the moment something inside Songyun finally broke. She wasn't angry. She was hurt. Why had everything suddenly become a secret? What was he hiding? And why did she feel like she was standing outside a door that used to be wide open? That evening, she finally asked the question she had been holding inside for days. Have I done something wrong? Xukai looked genuinely surprised. No. Why would you think that? Because lately, it feels like you've built a wall between us. He didn't answer. And sometimes, silence can hurt more than a painful truth. Several days later, Songyun received an unexpected invitation. It was for a community celebration organized by a local children's foundation. She almost declined. Her schedule was busy, and she was exhausted. But at the last minute, she decided to attend. She had no idea that this decision would finally reveal the secret that had been haunting her for weeks. The moment she entered the venue, she stopped. Colorful decorations covered the room. Children were laughing. Volunteers were carrying books. Paintings covered the walls. The atmosphere was warm and joyful. Then she saw someone familiar. Xukai. But he wasn't standing on a stage. He wasn't giving interviews. He wasn't posing for cameras. He was sitting among the children, helping them paint pictures and handing out books. Songyun stood there in complete confusion. What was he doing here? Then she noticed another familiar face. The elderly woman from the charity gala. The same woman who had once told Xukai, "I hope you've made the right decision." The woman recognized Songyun immediately and smiled. "I'm so happy you came." Songyun returned the smile. "I didn't know Xukai was involved with this project." The elderly woman looked surprised. He wanted it to be a surprise. Songyun froze. "A surprise?" The woman nodded. "He's been working with us quietly for almost a year." Almost a year. Songyun couldn't believe what she was hearing. The woman continued. "He helped organize the renovation of this learning center. He wanted everything to be ready before he told you." Songyun's confusion slowly turned into disbelief. "Why?" The elderly woman smiled. "Because today was supposed to be dedicated to someone very special." Songyun looked around. "Who?" The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she gently pointed toward a newly renovated room. Above the entrance was a beautiful plaque. "The Songyun Reading Corner." Songyun's eyes widened. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Then she saw Xukai walking toward her. He stopped in front of her. Neither of them said anything. The noise of the children continued around them, but for a moment, it felt as though the entire room had gone silent. Finally, Xukai smiled. "You once told me that every child deserves a place where dreams can begin." Songyun stared at him. He continued. "I never forgot that." Her eyes immediately filled with tears. The letters, the meetings, the phone calls, the package. Xukai nodded. They were all part of this. He had been working behind the scenes. The mysterious letter wasn't evidence of betrayal. The meetings weren't about something he wanted to hide forever. The package wasn't something dangerous. Everything Songyun had interpreted as distance had actually been part of a surprise. A surprise designed around something she deeply cared about. He had simply wanted to give her a moment she would never forget. But instead, his secrecy had created exactly the opposite effect. Songyun quietly wiped away her tears. "I thought you were hiding something from me." Xukai lowered his head. "I was." He paused. "But not because I wanted to deceive you." His voice softened. "I wanted to surprise you." Songyun looked at the children laughing inside the new reading room. Then she looked back at him. "I should have trusted you enough to ask." Xukai gently reached for her hand. "And I should have trusted our relationship enough to tell you that some secrets are meant to bring happiness, not pain." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Songyun squeezed his hand. And that simple gesture said more than either of them could have explained. Around them, the children were exploring their new library. Some were flipping through books. Others were showing their drawings to volunteers. Their laughter filled the room. And suddenly, all the fear Songyun had carried for weeks seemed very small. The suspicious looks. The unanswered questions. The missed phone call. The mysterious package. The elderly woman's strange comment. Every piece of the puzzle finally made sense. But the experience left both of them with an important lesson. Love isn't protected simply because two people care deeply about each other. It is protected through communication, through honesty, through the courage to ask questions before assumptions become reality. Because even a beautiful surprise can become a painful misunderstanding when silence is allowed to speak first. That afternoon became one of the most meaningful memories they shared. Not because of the renovated room. Not because of the plaque bearing Songyun's name. And not even because of the surprise itself. But because they finally understood how easily trust can be shaken when communication disappears. From that day forward, they made each other a simple promise. No matter how exciting the surprise. No matter how difficult the situation. No matter how complicated life became. They would never allow silence to tell the story before they did. Because sometimes relationships aren't tested by betrayal. Sometimes they're tested by the conversations we are too afraid to have. Sometimes, the greatest danger isn't a lie. It's an unanswered question that grows larger every day. And sometimes, one unopened letter, one mysterious package, and one delayed explanation are enough to remind two people that trust isn't something you simply receive. It is something you protect. Every single day. So perhaps the real lesson from Xukai and Songyun's story isn't about the letter at all. It's about what happens when love is strong enough to survive misunderstanding and honest enough to learn from it. Because in the end, the most valuable gift they gave each other wasn't the surprise. It was the promise to never let silence come between them again. And perhaps that's what makes this story so emotional. The secret wasn't meant to break their relationship. It was meant to create one unforgettable memory. It simply arrived with one problem. The truth came too late. Thank you for watching this drama-inspired celebrity story. If this emotional twist kept you watching until the end, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more celebrity stories, relationship mysteries, unexpected twists, and drama-inspired entertainment. And now we want to hear from you. If you were Songyun, what would you have done? Would you have trusted Xukai despite his strange behavior? Or would you have asked him about that mysterious letter from the very beginning? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.